Hey guys, back again with another video on the Evo Mirage conversion. So just been tidying things up, planning on taking this car to the DSM Shootout this year, so hopefully I'll see some of you guys there. Just been fixing little things here and there. It's been an interesting couple of weeks. There's nothing like major hardware changed, but it's a totally different car than what it was. Ended up well, some of you guys know that I did the fuel pump rewire on this. These are my 10 gauge wires that go back for the fuel pumps. And then there's relays in the back seat that the stock fuel pump wire triggers. And then of course these are fused. There's fuse boxes here just to prevent fires. But so I pulled one of the relays out and bridged it. And I undid the stock return line here and ran a piece of vacuum line out and to a gas can, pumped all the 93 out of it, and this car is officially on corn juice now. So no more 93, it is 100% E85. There's no way to run a flex sensor on these, which I'm probably going to change ECUs out for either an Evo 9 ECU or just a Lancer ECU, and I'll flash the Evo 8 ROM over to it. So that should get me going. Once I've got that done, I can run a flex sensor. It'll be a lot better. But for right now, everything's running good. Kept the same latencies or dead times as the injectors would use for gasoline. All I did was reduce the scaling number by 30% and then started playing with it and fine-tuning it until I got the short-term fuel trims within 10, so plus or minus, and it's running pretty good. So it definitely needs tuning. By no means is it perfect. I haven't really done much fine-tuning. I've still been chasing gremlins on this car, so, and I anticipate doing that for a while still. This engine's only got around 100 miles on it now, so but that's you know, it's getting there. It's come a long way from where it was, that's for sure. The E85 made a big difference to the way the car idles, because I was fighting with idling issues for a while. The ID 1700s are a little bit big, and well, they're a lot big for pump gas, but they weren't playing nice with the Evo 5 ECU either, so I think it's just kind of an outdated ECU. That's part of the reason I'm looking at switching to a newer one, which will be fairly simple. That's going to be one of the big things that gets done this winter is I'm going to pull the wiring loom out for the engine harness, delete all the AYC and ABS plugs, the stuff that I'm not using, and kind of consolidate the harness, and then I'm going to grab a like a boom slang harness, an ECU extension harness, and then repin that and leave all these ECU pins alone. That way I don't have to worry about snapping wires off. I did that the other day when I was messing with repinning some of the stuff. I ended up snapping off the speed sensor wire, and that took me like 45 minutes to fix because I relocated the ECU to the center of the car when I did this conversion so that I wouldn't have to extend the right-hand drive harness. Some of you guys might remember that. But anyway, so yeah, it's been just chasing gremlins down on this thing, trying to get it ready for the shootout. I had a really bad coolant leak that I've been trying to track down forever, and ended up figuring out where coolant was coming from the other day, and I've got that fixed, I think, now. So what was happening was I was getting just coolant all over the intake, all the way back here on the intercooler pipe. It was all over the throttle body. You can still see it's wet. It was all over in here. This is all still wet, and I initially thought it was the washer underneath this, but and maybe that had somewhat to do with it. That thing's been removed and retightened several times, which is fine. I ended up replacing it. That little rubber washer was $15 from Chrysler. I should have just used RTV, but no, don't do that. But anyway, I got that replaced, but I was still getting leaks, and I was trying to figure out where they were coming from. Well, I realized Mishimoto included this little bung here, which I assume is for a coolant temperature sensor. I didn't use it because I already got this block here for that, and I didn't really want to remove that after having cut my nice Mishimoto hoses, so I just left it where it was. And anyway, drained the top tank of the radiator using a turkey baster, which is a cool little tip if you've got to get to that on your Mishimoto radiator. I just drained it with a turkey baster, or you can use like a syringe of some kind to do that, as long as it's big enough to hold a lot of coolant. But drain the top part, remove that plug. There was hardly any thread tape on it, which, you know, that's okay. It's not a problem with the way Mishimoto designed it. They just didn't put enough thread tape on it. So remove that, remove the tape off of it, and I used a liquid thread sealant. Let it set up for a bit, and then put the coolant back in the radiator. So hopefully that won't leak anymore. And I also had an oil leak. Some of the guys that follow my build on Facebook might have seen that I had posted some stuff about how that was leaking, which I don't have a light, but you might be able to see the center cartridge of the turbo is soaked with oil. And that was only from a few minutes of driving. Well, I thought the hose was bad, but I think it was just loose, because it was pretty well airtight. And so I just tightened all the connections back up, and we'll see if it still leaks or not. Hopefully it won't. I suspect that it probably was just loose. It's really difficult to get to the top fitting for the hose on the top of the turbo. So I think maybe I just didn't have it tightened down enough. Hopefully I do this time, but I guess we'll see. So I've got those two things fixed. The car is now running on E85. I've done a few pulls. It's set at to run at wastegate right now. I've just got a piece of vacuum line connecting the outlet on the compressor housing over to the wastegate. Wastegate on this is 8 psi, I believe. It just does half a bar on the boost gauge, so I assume it's an 8 psi wastegate. And then I didn't port the wastegate housing on this car, so it actually overboosts to 1 bar, which is still fine because it's tuned for that far at least. Being on a stock Evo ECU, they run more than that, I believe, from the factory. So 15 psi, that's not a big deal. I can deal with it overboosting that far. So, but it runs really, really good. I've done a couple other little things. So you might have noticed the Tomei heat shield. That's new. I was having some issues. I ended up melting through my air conditioning hose here, and it's trying to do it again. So to remedy it, I actually took the hose over and used the original fittings that I had modified to fit with the dump pipe, and had a new hose made with the original ends, which is expensive. It was like 150 bucks. But anyway, I got all that done, and then I modified one of those little metal like heat shield jackets that they use to protect spark plug wires on V8s. They sell really long ones at O'Reilly Auto Parts, and probably most auto parts stores, honestly. So I modified one of those and sleeved it around this, and then I wrapped it in heat tape, and then I put one of these stretchy plastic sleeves on it to try to hold it away, but it's still getting too close. You can kind of see it's actually melted some material from that onto the manifold. I can't get it to focus. There. And the actual, yeah, you can see it there. It's starting to melt that. But the hose should still be okay. I'm sure that does affect the operation of the air conditioner, but I don't think it'll damage the hose, at least. So I've got the air conditioner charged. It works now. I had a couple of things that I had to fix on it. Compressor wasn't kicking on. It was the stupid sensor, the temperature sensor that goes in the evaporator under the dash. There's a temperature sensor that mounts on that for the auto climate system. If that's not plugged in, the compressor won't kick over. So make sure that you've got that done. And that wasn't really a big deal. So I've got all that fixed. I'm still having issues with the power steering pump. I have rebuilt this thing completely. I replaced the hose here, which it's always got condensation on it for some reason. Even I don't understand why, and maybe that has something to do with it. But I've rebuilt this pump. It uses a Chrysler rebuild kit for a stock Evo 4 power steering pump. All the O-rings fit perfectly. No kind of janky making things work. Everything bolted up like factory. I changed all the seals inside it. I changed the shaft seal. I changed, everything. All of the O-rings, top O-ring, the O-rings on the high pressure side, and for good measure, I even gray RTV'd around the seam where it separates, and it's still leaking. So I don't know, maybe the pump's just too old. Maybe there's too much wear on the center shaft that the pulley's on, and it's just not sealing. I'm really not sure. It's really frustrating, and it makes me nervous because it actually, the design, which you can't really see it, but the design of the bracket on the Evo 4 is a slanted downwards bracket towards the engine block. So all the power steering fluid that leaks out of this runs down the bracket, and it runs into the timing cover, and it drips out of the bottom of the timing cover. So it makes me nervous. So far the belt's been dry. I did have a leak on the belt at one point, but I cleaned it up, and I think it'll be okay. It's not like it was soaked or anything. It was just on the top of it, and it's a Kevlar belt anyway, so it should be okay. And I continually check it to make sure, but it's actually out of power steering fluid now, so I just have to kind of deal with that pump screaming for the time being, but I'll get it figured out eventually. That's just more stuff that I've got to deal with on this thing. So if you thought building a project car like this was going to be perfect and everything was going to go smoothly, think again. I've had plenty of issues with this thing, some that I've posted, some that I haven't. So, but on the whole, everything works really, really good now. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys at the shootout here in a couple of days. So anyway, hope to see some of you guys there. I've been showing my face a little bit more, so if you see me out there, definitely come say hey, come see the car, and I'll probably have a couple of parts for sale. I've got an AYC rear end that I don't need and stuff like that. So if anybody needs parts or anything, just let me know. I'll try to take a decent amount of stuff with me. But yeah, come say hey, come check out the car. And I will be there on Saturday only. I'm coming Saturday morning, and I'm leaving Saturday night. So those would be the day. That'd be the day to look for me, and hope to see you guys there. Anyway, it's a little bit different of a video. There really hasn't been showing off a whole lot of things that I've been doing to the car. It's just been kind of showing status updates on what I've had to do to get it ready, what fixes I've had to do. But hopefully I'll see you guys there. Hopefully it won't break. So anyway, I'll see you guys next time, and hope to see you guys Saturday.